Sarah O'Donovan is with us. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. So the draw has been made for the All-Ireland Hurling quarterfinals. Just in the past couple of moments, it is Dublin against Cork and Tipperary against Waterford. What do you make of that?
A big smiley head in me this morning. I think Munster has proved the acid test for teams, and I think Cork will be better prepared going into the Dublin game.
The Sarah O'Donovan derby.
I'll actually be in Down myself. We're playing down in Newry, so I won't get to be there. But certainly, from my experience, Cork and Dublin games are fiery. You know, it's gone either way on a couple of occasions, but I do fancy Cork because Cork have had those tests now in the last couple of games. Dublin were obviously unlucky with COVID and went into the Leinster final with a lot of pressure on them, didn't deliver. Cork came out yesterday, had to answer questions against Clare and answered them emphatically. I felt they were very physical, and their physicality finally caught up with their pace, which I loved. As
I mentioned, your focus will be elsewhere, but come on, who are you going to be cheering for?
Cork, 100%. I bleed red. You know, this is ultimately where I'm actually in Cork today, which is probably why Corkness is just running through me today.
So Dublin, Cork, the winners of that will play Limerick in the All-Ireland semi-final, and Tip against Waterford. The winners of that will play Kilkenny. So we know now exactly how the rest of the summer is going to pan out. Let's talk about Cork then. 319 to 123 winners over Clare. Kind of feel I need to start though with that save at the end, because I think both managers touched on it, that this was proper championship hurling, and so much of our analysis is based on the result. If Tony Kelly smacks that in, as we all expected him to do, we're probably talking again about Tony Kelly, potential hurler of the year, and Clare's All-Ireland contenders. And for once for Tony Kelly, the magic didn't happen.
Man from Ballinhassig, Pa Collins, steps up, and you know, they talk about brilliant saves and important saves, and he was very effective throughout the game. But to be that focused in the last minutes, you know, we talked about Nicky Quaid for Limerick over the years being so important, and Pa Collins was the same yesterday. Goalkeepers really are the stars of the show in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it was an absolute, it was a game-winning save from Pa Collins. In terms of where Cork are then, because Clare have been pretty hotly tipped heading into this game, and they had good momentum behind them as well. But like Cork defence, particular Robert Downey, Sean O'Donoghue, with Damien Cahalane out with appendicitis, probably not going to be back, it seems, for the quarter-final either. A lot of players really came to the fore this weekend.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you rely on players because they've been there always, and appendicitis is a cruel thing. You know, obviously Damien Cahalane steps out, and then Robert Downey has to step into his shoes, and he fills those shoes. I really thought himself, Sean O'Donoghue, Niall O'Leary answered so many questions yesterday that previously went unanswered, and sometimes, you know, I think crucially they're not carrying any expectation. These are new guys who are fresh. They haven't the disappointment, and they hurl like that. That was really, really exciting for me yesterday.
Is there not always a level of expectation when you're a Cork hurler?
100%. It's what they live and breathe in Cork. You know, there's so many men in Cork who are happy today. I cannot explain now. On the negative side, obviously the football will move swiftly on. I'm glad Paddy Andrews was on earlier and we don't have to talk about it, but it'll be completely overshadowed by the Cork hurling win. Completely overshadowed.
Because there is a spot that we were talking about on Friday's show. Adrian Barry was christening Clare as the second best team in the country at that stage. But like, that is a debate that you could have all night long, because everyone is in agreement that Limerick are way up here. That actually, like, Cork may well be the second best team in the country. Am I going too far?
Yeah, you're going too far. I think Kilkenny probably are the closest team to Limerick right now, in terms of their bench, in terms of their ferocity, in terms of their key forwards, in terms of their match-winning ability. But I wouldn't discount Cork. I just think that they are on a developmental path, and Kilkenny are more refined.
It's a perfect draw then, maybe, for a team that are on a developmental path, because like, that is a big win against the coming force again in Clare. And as you said, a draw now against Dublin, who, listen, they had their COVID issues in that Leinster final, which maybe sucked the life out of them for that game. But then the winners of that will play Limerick. We will learn an awful lot about Cork over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and look, going back to Dublin, Galway's loss yesterday probably puts the win by Dublin in a different light. Some teams are brilliant to train, and some teams are built to win championship matches. And I wonder, when we're looking at the championship games coming on, I heard Shane McGrath just after the draw saying Tipperary have Waterford's number. It's a psychological battle at this point. Going into the Clare game yesterday, Cork had beaten Clare on the last 7 of 8 occasions, and that has to play on the minds of the players going into these games. So Cork will have to look at the Dublin game first, can't look past it, can't consider what's coming afterwards, which is obviously a mammoth task against Limerick. Dublin probably are going into the game with less pressure because people will assume that it's Cork's game to lose. So there's pluses and minuses for Cork with the draw.
Like, Tip may well think they've Waterford's measure, but like, we don't really know what to expect from Waterford, because like Laois pushed them all the way just over a week ago, and then they come out against Galway, and to be 16 points up at one stage. Was that down to the brilliance and the system of Waterford, or was it just a total systems failure from Galway?
I was pulling into Parnell Park yesterday on Saturday when that match was being played out, and we were obviously playing Waterford in our own championship game. And I pulled in next to supporters from Waterford, and they were absolutely beaming inside in the car. And I looked across and I said, "What's the story?" And they said, "We're up 14 points." And I went, "Oh, mother of Jesus," because I knew then the Waterford camogie players would be coming with that same ferocity, that belief. You're coming up in a car, you're listening to your county comrades beating Galway, beating the lights out of Galway, and they're coming in to play us in Parnell Park. And I was sickened, to be honest. And the result proved that way from our point of view. But I just felt from Waterford's point of view on Saturday, they had 11 different scorers. They weren't relying on 2 or 3 different guys. They play with such intensity, and they do everything fast first. A really impressive running game. I suppose obviously it's backboned by Jamie Barron, but Jack Fagan's goal, there's 3 or 4 players bombing, running off him. He's so many options, and that's so hard to stop.
And it's a Waterford squad like that is full of talent. I know Tadhg de Burke is a huge loss, but like when you have Ozzie Gleeson there and Jamie Barron and like Desi Hutchinson still capable of moments of magic, like this is a team who got to an All-Ireland final last year, who we sort of forget about it. We don't seem to put in that top rank of who is the second best team after Limerick, yet who have delivered some of the best championship performances over the past couple of years.
And that's what I'm referring to. Some teams love to train, and some teams are just designed to win championship matches, and that's Waterford. Derek Lyons is over the Waterford camogie team, and obviously Callum had a spectacular game on Saturday, and before the throw-in you could see him, he was absolutely beaming, real pride in the jersey, real pride in their players, and they have no fear when they take any team on, and I think that's the beauty of Waterford hurling, is that yes, Tipperary will feel like they have Waterford's measure, but Waterford are saying no, we're built for championship, we know how to win games.
Galway don't know how to win games anymore. Like you mentioned, the manner of defeat to Dublin, and then to whatever about the last gasp comeback, and maybe it would have been one of the greatest comebacks of all time. We're talking about their character and how they never gave up. But when you find yourself 16 points down a match, you don't deserve anything from it. Like it has been a very, very flat couple of years for this group.
Their league form and their championship form were chalk and cheese, right? What I will say about Galway and Dublin game was, Galway were criticised heavily after the Dublin game for going for goals early and being too direct, and then obviously losing the game in the manner which they did. And it was suggested that they should have kept the battle rhythm going, kept the game tipping over. And then you saw in the game when you saw the game yesterday, when they went direct and when Jason Flynn scored those 2 goals, you were saying, God, why weren't they more direct earlier? So it's kind of a juxtaposition. We were giving out to them for being so direct against Dublin early on, and then yesterday saying you waited till the last 20 minutes to go at them. It appears that their game management has kind of fallen off this year, which is disappointing. And as I said, the league didn't suggest that they were actually in trouble.
We should still give a mention to Joe Canning on becoming the all-time leading scorer, 27 goals, 485 points after 9 points at the weekend. Turns 33 later this year. James Gettle touched on him there. I heard Ollie Canning talking about how many more years of Joe Canning do we have left. Every ounce of every being in goal will be saying, Joe, don't leave us now in our hour of need.
I don't think Joe has to go. Tom Brady's still playing at 40. Joe was pinging a pass to Jason Flynn yesterday. His vision, his fitness, leave Joe alone. Joe doesn't need to retire. And look, if we're chasing the best out of the game at this stage, we need to cop on to ourselves. Joe doesn't need to go.
It is an incredible record, though. And it's great that actually we do have these records. I know a lot of people have done a lot of work, because it's one thing the GAA is really lacking, is that archive of statistics that we can go back through the 140 years as it near is now and compare the greats through the different eras. But to know that Joe Canning is the best of the best and surpass King Henry is one of the great achievements.
And Henry Shefflin's not going to mind either. You know, I think hurling is such an amazing sport, and it gives such thrills. And, you know, you look at fallen heroes yesterday, you look at Tony Kelly scoring 111 and leaves the field in defeat. You cannot... and there'll be better players, you know, and that's the beauty of it. Joe now has set the standard. Henry set it before him. There will be players will emulate Joe, and, you know, no more than Owen Cody. We're talking about exciting players coming through. It's always going to be the future in hurling, and that's why I'm slow to kind of say goodbye to these guys, because you need the new guys to see these guys to their absolute prime and keep pushing them.
You touched on your other role as Dublin Camogie coach in the match against Waterford, who did take a lot from the men's team and did come out all guns blazing. It was a tough day at the office for Dublin.
It was, and look, you know, we didn't expect it because our team trained really, really well, and it's really hard to foresee a result like that when your team gives you everything on the training pitch. So I suppose from our point of view, it's about turning that incredible intensity in training into championship winning form, and we have to find out with our players. We're out of the championship now. It's a cruel thing. You only have kind of one chance essentially. Cork were seen as the favourites in the group. We lost Cork the first day out. It was all pinned on us beating Waterford. Waterford had beaten down by a point, had gone ahead last week at the last score of the game, and then came out against us, and, you know, 14 points the better. So they're now through to the quarterfinals. We have a game against Down. Whoever loses goes into a relegation battle again, because obviously in the league we had survived relegation beating Waterford. Waterford are probably thinking, God, how did we leave that one go? Because they play Division 2 now next year in the Camogie because of that defeat to us. There's a lot going to be asked of this Dublin team in the next week. And I heard obviously James Cahill talking about the past and the future in terms of Galway hurling, and there'll be players on our Dublin team who will be wondering if they want to come back next year. And I suppose what we will be looking for is a performance to allow the future of Dublin Camogie to experience playing the Kilkennys and Galways, and don't leave, you know, the championship so quietly, because the future of Dublin Camogie requires us to be playing at the top level.
How are you then that night when, as you feel you've had a really good week of training and everything is set up and the performance doesn't come?
It's so incredibly difficult to look out at the stand and see the parents and the families and the coaches, and they're looking at you and thinking, oh, what have you been doing for the last 2 or 3 weeks, you know? And I suppose from the players' point of view, they are going to be most disappointed in themselves. You go to training on Wednesday night and they will be looking back at you saying, you know, we don't know what happened. And it's about parking it. The best people to park it this year are clearly Waterford, you know, losing to Clare in the Munster final in the hurling, and then having a poor day out against Laois, and then different animal when they come into the big games. And I suppose that's what we have to do with Dublin, is find a way of bringing this new intensity on next Saturday against Down.
Just looking at the rest of the Camogie Championship then, as we head into that final weekend, Galway, Kilkenny, Cork, Tip, all looking well positioned.
Yeah, actually, it's set up already. Every team that needed to qualify for a quarterfinal has won their 2 games. So there's very little to decipher over the next weekend. I suppose it's just about those kind of players on the periphery of teams putting up their hand and looking for a championship start. You know, Tipperary were very impressive with their win over Limerick. And then in the same token, Limerick in the league had been excellent and had really, you know, had worked Kilkenny to the bone to get them over the line. And we were surprised that Limerick, you know, now find themselves in potentially a relegation battle like us. But Wexford, Tip, Cork, Waterford have all done the business.
Sarah, very best of luck next weekend. Dublin up against Down in that relegation playoff. Hope it all works out for you. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Sarah O'Donovan there at Dublin Camogie coach. And a reminder as well of that breaking news, the draw for the All-Ireland hurling quarterfinals. Dublin against Cork. The winner of that will play Limerick in the semi-finals, and Tip against Waterford.